Hi, I'm Erin. I'm the training facilitator here at the Pikes Peak Workforce Center, and I want to thank you for joining me today. Today, we're going to be doing part one of a three-part series on how to create a better resume. So, the first thing that I want you to understand about resume writing is that there is no such thing as a perfect resume. So, if you came to this to learn how to write the perfect resume, you should just leave. No, I'm just joking. Don't turn this off. You need to keep watching. But there is no such thing as a perfect resume. You can show your resume to 10 different people and you are going to get 10 different opinions. You might actually get 12 because a few of those people might change their mind somewhere through there. So understand that what I'm going to be teaching over the next three parts of this series is information that we hear from companies. What do they want to see? What do they not want to see? And how do they want to see it? So I'm giving you tips and suggestions. You get to take what you like and leave what you don't like. The first thing that I want you to understand about your resume is that your resume is an advertisement. It's a chance to brag about yourself. So you might have heard of Nabisco before. They're a pretty famous brand out there. They make a lot of different products. They make Wheat Thins, they make Triscuits, they make Ritz, they make Oreos and Chips Ahoy and all these different products. But when they do a 30-second commercial, they never come on and say, hi, we're Nabisco Baking Company and we make a plethora of products. We make Ritz, Uso, buttery and yummy. We make Triscuits all thick and textured. We make Oreos, we make Chips Ahoy, we make. They will not do that. On a 30-second commercial, they go out and they do what's called market research. And they ask people, what is it about Wheat Thins that makes you want to buy Wheat Thins? And they'll focus their 30-second commercial on this one brand. So I like to use this as an example because a lot of us are somewhat of a Nabisco. Under the brand of Erin, I have experience working in restaurants, in the library. I have experience in manufacturing. I have experience in corrections, in case management, in training. I have all of these products under the brand of Erin. But if I'm applying for a position in training, my job is to focus my commercial, i.e. my resume, on training. Now, how long do you think an employer will spend looking at your resume on the first glance? Answer this in your head. Obviously, I can't see you. You might be shocked because employers will spend on average, first glance, 7 seconds looking at your resume. So the first thing that we got to do with your resume is get through that first 7 seconds. So there are two critical tasks when you're creating your resume. We're going to cover critical task number one today. Critical task number one is that one size does not fit all. So for every job you apply to, you have to create a new resume. Don't throw anything at me, okay? It won't reach me anyways. But for every job you apply to, you have to create a new resume. So this one's for the gentlemen out there. Guys, I want to ask you, how many of you think all women are alike? Once you've got one of us figured out, you got all of us figured out. Like, just get me the same thing you used to get your ex. All women are not the same. All customer service jobs are not the same. All training jobs are not the same. And so you have to tailor your resume to the job posting. The best way to do that, print out the job posting. Do not leave it on your screen. Print out the job posting. Grab a pen, pencil, highlighter, whatever you have handy, and you're going to underline or circle or highlight those things that they're looking for. So maybe, for example, this position is looking for customer service experience with a background in medical claims, a focus on customer retention, bilingual, and let's say has conflict resolution skills. All right. So you're going to highlight or underline or circle those things. And then as you get those into your tailored resume, you can do a checks and balance and you can cross them off of the job posting. Your goal is to get as close to the job posting as possible. Don't lie. Do not put bilingual if you're not bilingual just because it's in the job posting. I promise they'll figure that out, right? So your goal is to get as close to the job posting as possible. Now, also, I do highly suggest when you're creating this tailored resume that you look at the company's website. Go through their website and see if you're noticing any particular phrases or language that they continue to use. So maybe instead of talking about customer service, maybe they keep referring to the customer experience, in which case you would also want to reflect that in your tailored resume. Now, how many of you are thinking, this sounds like a lot of work, Erin? I'm not going to lie to you, it's a lot of work. I would plan on spending at least an hour to an hour and a half to tailor every resume and cover letter. We'll talk about that on part 3 to the job that you're applying to. All right. But there are 2 things that you can do to make this a little bit easier on yourself. The first is to create what we call a master resume. This resume is going to include everything you've ever done. Every bit of education you have, every job you've ever held, maybe even way back to the fast food days or whatever that might look like, everything you've ever done. Any community service, volunteerism. Now, you would never submit that master resume to any company. I always joke that the federal government likes to know every detail from the time you were conceived until the time you plan to die. Somewhat of a joke, somewhat not, but they even like their own format. So I suggest that you just create this master resume. That way, when you're creating your tailored resume, you can copy paste. The other idea would be to create what we call skeleton resumes based on the occupation. So maybe some of you are thinking, I'm looking for more than one type of work, Erin. Maybe I'm looking for manufacturing. I'm also looking for customer service. And oh, by the way, I just got my certification to be an astronaut, right? So I'm looking for 3 very different types of jobs. So I'm going to have the skeletons for each of those. Here's what most manufacturing positions require. Here's what most customer service positions are looking for. And here's what most astronaut job postings want, right? Now, I'm going to have the skeletons, in other words, the bare bones. But when I see that job posting for astronaut, we see those, a whole bunch of them, by the way. When I get that job posting for astronaut, I'm actually still going to go through that job posting with my pen, pencil, or highlighter, and I'm going to build on the skeleton. So I'm going to add the muscles and the flesh and all of that based on what's in the job posting. Now, you might do one or both of those. Either of them work to make this a little bit easier on yourself. And this being said, it's very important you save every version of your resume. That's going to come in really handy when it's time to interview, okay? So I suggest either saving it as the job title and the company name, or flip that, the company name and the job title. But the key here is that you are focusing on how you fit that specific job. Again, you might have a lot of different things going on under the brand of you, but you need to focus on how you fit the specific position that you're applying to. All right, so here's an example. You could see that we have a job posting that we've gone through with a highlighter to determine which things that you want to put into or need to put into your resume. I'm also looking at that website, and those things are going to help me tailor my resume. All right, the next thing that I want you to consider is, what is the purpose of your resume? Is your resume meant to get you a job? No, I've been working at the Workforce Center for 14 years and 7 months. It told me that on LinkedIn today. So 14 years and 7 months. And only in that time, I've only had 3 people tell me they submitted a resume and got a job offer. Your resume is simply a ticket to an interview. So I want you to think about the last time you went to the movie theater, and some of you, that might have been a long time ago based on everything that's going on. But think about the last time you went to the movie theater. I'll tell you, the last movie I saw in the movie theater was Bad Boys for Life. And I walked up to the ticket counter and I said, I'll take 1 ticket for Bad Boys for Life. And they said, that'll be $8, which is around like the bargain matinee price. And I said, no way. I'm so excited to see what Will Smith and Martin Lawrence are going to do in this version. I love the Bad Boys series. It always cracks me up. Here's a 20, keep the change. Do you guys think I really did that? Absolutely not. Give me my change back. I need to go to concessions and buy a $20 popcorn, right? So just like that would be crazy at the movie theater, it's equally crazy to do that in your resume. But people regularly are giving more than what's being asked. And the problem with that is that puts you at a disadvantage. So part of tailoring your resume includes toning it down. The easiest way I can summarize toning it down is basically remove everything they didn't ask for. And the reason we're toning it down is to avoid elimination. So one thing I want you to understand is, as you're submitting applications and resumes, you are not in a hiring process. You are in a process of elimination. So your first goal in that first 7 seconds is to avoid elimination. Some of the things that will easily get you eliminated: being labeled overqualified. So let's say, for example, I'm applying for a customer service rep position, and I used to be, my most recent job was a customer service manager position. If I focus my resume on the customer service manager, I hired and fired people, I scheduled people, I monitored their calls, I ran performance reviews, those types of things. I'm jumping out and I'm saying, I'm overqualified. And that's a problem. I need to remain focused on what's relevant to the job I'm applying to. So, as a customer service manager, I also took these types of phone calls. I don't even want to speak to you, just let me speak to your manager. And I get on the phone with this customer and I provide customer service with a focus on customer retention. And I use my conflict resolution skills, things that were relevant to the job that I'm applying to. Now, some of you may be thinking, Erin, I know I'm overqualified and I'm applying for the job. Clearly, I'm okay with that. But this isn't about you. I want you to understand that when an employer sees you're overqualified, they see red flags. So let's discuss those red flags. One of those things is that when you're overqualified, they think you're a flight risk. So you're just taking this job until you can find what you're really looking for. And most employers are investing somewhere around 20% of a person's annual salary or wages just to get you hired and trained to where you can work independently. So if it's a $30,000 a year job, they're investing $6,000 in that process. And 2 months later, you go find that job you were really looking for, and now they have to invest another $6,000 in someone else. It's not a sound investment. Another thing they think when they see you're overqualified is you're going to want more money than what we're paying. And if you think they're going to call you and say, hi, so I see you used to be a customer service manager and now you're applying for customer service. You understand that'll be significantly less pay, don't you? How do you feel about that? They won't do that. You just easily go into the elimination pile. The other thing that they see when they see you're overqualified, sometimes they go, oh, you could do my job. I don't need that kind of competition. So overqualified is not a good thing. Another reason that you might need to tone down your resume is with your education. Let's say this position, for example, requires a bachelor's degree and you have a master's degree. I'm saying leave your master's degree off your resume. Now, there are some caveats to this one before you want to throw anything at me again. There are some caveats to this one. So let's say, for instance, this says bachelor's required, master's preferred. Then by all means, list them both. Let's back it down a second. Let's say this job posting says this position requires an associate's degree. You didn't get an associate's degree, you got a bachelor's degree. So you can't lie and say you got an associate's degree. You would list the bachelor's degree, even though it's higher than what they asked for, but to show that higher education. The third caveat is if it helps paint the picture. Let's say, for instance, the job is very specific. You must have a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. And your bachelor's degree is in world dance. Tell me if that sounds right. Your bachelor's degree is in world dance. Well, if you had a master's degree in electrical engineering, then I would say, yes, list that master's degree, even though it's higher than what they asked for, because it helps paint the picture. It shows the relevant education. All right. And generally speaking, once you've listed a degree of any sort, you do not need to list your high school diploma. The third eliminator that I want to talk about is age discrimination. It's illegal, but it is alive and thriving. So let's say this job posting says this position requires 5 years of experience and you've got 20. What are you going to put on your resume? 5, 5+, or over 5. Any of those work just fine. If you've got 20, you've got 5. Now, I will tell you, if you're in the Colorado Springs area, there is one employer that we have heard from that says, don't do this. Don't match the number of years of experience. And that is the city of Colorado Springs. And that's because they post their jobs from a very different standpoint. So most companies post their job postings from the dream candidate. So think back to when you were single, or that might be now. You might have had a list of all these things you're looking for in a potential mate. Most of us will find somebody who has hopefully a lot of those things, and then we'll go with that. We'll go, okay, I'll settle. And I don't mean that in a bad way. That's how most employers post their jobs. The city of Colorado Springs posts theirs from a bare minimum. So it would be like saying, I just want to date someone who's breathing. Are you breathing? right? Not what they're looking for. So when the city of Colorado Springs posts a job that says we are requiring 1 year of experience and you've got 20, please don't put one plus, or over one. In that instance, I would suggest the highest that you go is 10 to, again, to avoid the age discrimination, but don't match their bare minimum number that they're listing there. All right. Now, this often brings up the point of applications. So let's talk about the difference between applications and resumes. They're very different. An application is a formality. It's a required piece of your personnel folder. Every company that you work for has to have an application on file for you. Now, applications are completely driven by the company. In other words, they give you the questions or fields that you need to respond to. These applications are at the bottom, you sign or type your name saying, I acknowledge that this information is true to the best of my knowledge. That makes this a legal document. An application will ask for things that don't belong in your resume. Like an application can ask for your social security number. That's completely legal, all right? An application will ask for things like, why did you leave your position? An application will ask, have you ever been convicted of a crime? These are things that go on an application, but not a resume. A resume is your sales pitch. It's your best foot forward. You have full control over what you put into your resume. I suppose you could lie, but again, I highly suggest against that. All right. So you want to realize that the resume is your sales pitch. So I want you to think about it. And I want you to think about going out on a first date with somebody. Let's say you go out on a first date with somebody, you sit across the table from them and you ask them a very normal first date type of question. Tell me about yourself, which is also, oddly enough, a very normal first interview question. So you say, tell me about yourself, and this is what you get back. Well, I had a really rough upbringing. My dad left when I was 2, so my mom had to work 3 jobs to take care of me and my brother and my sister. She was gone a lot. I got in with the wrong crowd, got into some trouble, did a few years in juvie, really got it together in my 20s, got married, had 2 beautiful kids. I love my kids. They're so amazing. Had a really bad divorce, and they still can't find my ex. Are you going on date number 2 with this person? Probably not, right? Some of us might have some of that ugly, right? We might have been fired from a job. We might have quit a job. We might have, had, let's say, a felony or DUI or something in our background, but that's not our sales pitch. So you want to remember that your resume is your sales pitch. Let's look at it from one more analogy. Buying a car at a dealership. Now, if you guys went, ugh, right? Let's reframe that. Who's had the opportunity to buy a car at a dealership? When you walk up to a car at a dealership, there's a big sticker on the window. And this sticker will have all sorts of information on it. Somewhere, like the biggest thing on the sticker, miles per gallon. Somewhere in, oddly enough, much smaller font in the bottom right-hand corner is going to be the price. And you might be looking for a key feature on this vehicle, like does it have an 8-track cassette player? Some of you are like, I don't even know what that is, Erin. No, does it have heated leather seats, right? Most people will not read this entire sticker. They're looking for those key things. What do they have? Does it have heated leather seats? What is the price? This is the formality. This is your application. But most people will not just go look at that sticker and say, I'm going to buy the car. That's it. Most employers will not look at the application and go, here's your job offer. The next thing that happens is that you have a salesperson approach you. Dun, dun, dun. So there are good salespeople and there are bad salespeople. A bad salesperson will take you to the vehicle they think you want based on an overgeneralization or a stereotype. Susie, let me take you to this minivan. It has 5-star safety features and entertainment in the back for all those kiddos I know you're hauling back and forth to soccer practice. Martin, let me take you to this little red sports car. It goes from 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, has heated leather seats, V8 engine. It roars, it purrs like a kitten, and, has rims. Now, if Susie is looking for that little red sports car, Susie is not likely to test drive that minivan. But I'll tell you what, on the flip side, if I needed that minivan and they offered me to test drive that sports car, oh, I'm doing it. I feel like that's one of my missed callings is race car driver. So this is a salesperson. They just base that on an overgeneralization or a stereotype. A good salesperson will say, Susie, what are you looking for in a vehicle? And when Susie describes that sports car, they're going to take her to the closest thing that they have on the lot to that sports car. This is your resume as the salesperson. So you can give them what you think they want. And in all honesty, if I have to be honest with you guys, most of the times with regards to your resume, that's more of a function of laziness. I know Erin said I have to create a new resume for every job, but that sounds like way too much work. I don't want to do that. Or you can actually ask them what they're looking for. In other words, read that job posting, go through it with a fine-tooth comb, and take them to the closest thing to that vehicle that they're looking for. Because you're not going to make it to the test drive, aka the interview, if you don't take them to the right vehicle. All right. So there's a few analogies for you. Now, employers even look at applications and resumes kind of for different things. So when they're looking at applications, they're looking for, first of all, some of the technical stuff, like do you have a valid driver's license? That might be a requirement. They're looking for that on your application. They're also looking for red flags in the application. So some of the things that can be red flags in an application: what year did you graduate high school? Now, this is a completely legal question for them to ask, and trust me, I get it. I don't understand how the HR world hasn't caught up to the fact yet that that could lead to age discrimination, but it's completely legal. Now, if it will let you skip that question, feel free to do so. But my only other advice is if a company doesn't want to hire you because you graduated high school in the 1900s, you probably don't want to work there anyways. Sometimes the red flag that they're finding in applications is, why did you leave your last position? Now, I do get to have some fun in my job. A lot of times I will see applications and resumes that come through for positions at the Pikes Peak Workforce Center, and I have seen these responses to why did you leave? Piss poor management. Oh yeah, somebody put that on their application. I was getting married to one of the bosses. I had a baby. These things are not great answers. So first of all, if it was piss poor management, you and your supervisor did not get along, do not say that. That's probably kind of obvious, but don't say that. You might say something like seeking new opportunities. Now, let's say you were marrying one of the supervisors. That sounds very scandalous. Don't put that. You might say, again, seeking new opportunities, right? Or if you had a baby, do not put that. That's too personal. You could just put personal sabbatical, and we will discuss that on part 2 of this resume series. Also, when an employer is looking at your application, they're not necessarily expecting it to tell them that you qualify for the position, that you can actually do the type of work that they're looking for. That's what your resume is for. They're looking at your resume to say, hey, tell me that you're awesome at what you do and that you're going to be able to handle my job. You can tailor and tone down your application to some extent, but not to the same extent as you can your resume. So a lot of times, for example, on an application, it might say, please list all levels of education that you've completed. So you might have a master's degree on your application that you're not listing on your resume, and that's okay. Employers, in the whopping 7 seconds that they look at your resume on first glance, I promise you they're not going to pull out the application and your resume and start comparing and contrasting and going, over here she listed a master's degree, but she didn't do that over here. They're not doing that. The other thing is that employers are the ones saying, please just tell me that you got what I'm looking for and don't give me your whole life story. So understand that employers are looking for different things. So on an application, yes, you may not be able to tone down, for example, your education. You aren't able to tone down your job title or anything, but when you're on an application and it's asking for your work history, there's an area usually that says duties. You can still tailor those duties to what's relevant to the job that you're applying to. All right, so those are some differences there with applications and resumes. Now, one of the main reasons why why toning down and tailoring is so important is because of these things called ATSs. ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System, and it's a software program that does the initial screening of your resume. Now, there are over 150 different ATS versions out there, so I'm going to give you the general rule of how they work. About 75% of resumes are screened out by an ATS. All right, so it's important to understand that ATSs function off of keywords. You might have heard this before. You got to get keywords into your resume. And you might have been like, I don't understand what she's talking about. So, technically speaking, keywords are terms that refer to specific skills, abilities, knowledge, and experience. So, if I'm an employer and I'm using an ATS, I go into the system, I plug in the job posting, I plug in the keywords that I'm looking for, and I set a threshold. So let's say 75%. I will just generally say for you, if you have about 75% of what a company's looking for in their job posting, it makes sense for you to take the time to apply. Don't feel like you have to have 100%. So if their threshold is 75% and your resume comes through with anything less than 75%, it's likely to never be seen by a human being because the system screens it out. So how do I know what the keywords are? Well, the first best way is if you're tailoring your resume to the job posting, like I already said. So if as you go under the job posting, and guys, I wish that all employers wrote their job postings the same. They don't. It might be under requirements, it might be under preferred, who knows what it's under. But as you're going through those things, you get those keywords into your resume. And you have to use the same language that the company's using because the systems don't pick up they don't pick up similar language. So if it's saying we want someone with conflict resolution skills, it's not going to pick up if you write a statement about your de-escalation skills. So you have to use the same language as them. Let's say this job posting says we're looking for somebody with computer programming experience. And instead of saying that, you say experience using C++ and Java. They might be thinking, you never know, it might be a human resources person that's like, okay, this person was an average student and they really like coffee. They don't know what C++ and Java are. So you'd be better off to say experience programming using C++ and Java, but that way you got the word programming in, which is likely to be a key word. All right, so use the same language as them. And I have had some people that have said, so basically I'm going to plagiarize or copy paste their job posting into my resume. Well, you can look at it that way, but you'll see, and especially part two, that you got to do way more than that. You can't just copy paste. All right. But what if you don't have a job posting? Do you know the number one way to find employment? The number one way of finding work is through networking, not through applying for jobs online. So let's say I come to you and I say, hey, are you still looking for work? And you say, absolutely. I say, awesome, send me your resume or send your resume to this person. Your first question to me should be, can you get me a job posting or job description? Now, the difference here is a job description is what you get when you're actually hired. All right. So can you get me a job posting or job description? If I can get you that, tailor your resume to the job posting or job description. But I might say, no, I don't have access to the job posting or job description. Your next question should be, can you tell me who the company is? And if I can tell you who the company is, you can go to their website, you can do some digging around, you might be able to find something, or you can just Google the company name and the job title. And you might be able to even pull like an older job posting from online and tailor or tone it down to that. But what if I say, no, I can't tell you who the company is. If I tell you that, I have to kill you. Whoa, that's too much, right? You still have some options. You can go to a labor market information site called ONET. The link that is there on your screen. You can go to ONET and they have just under 1,000 different occupational descriptions. You can go to the occupational description for the type of job you're looking for. And I will tell you in that occupational description, it doesn't have an area that says here are keywords, right? I keep thinking at some point they'll catch up to that and they'll start doing that, but they don't at this time. So you just kind of have to read through the occupational report and look at what do I think might be some keywords in here. The other idea is to do an internet search. I'm a Google person. You might be able to tell that already. So I might just go out and Google, for example, administrative assistant job descriptions. Now I'll get thousands if I Google that. Look at 5. I don't mean 5,000, 5, right? Look at 5. And where you start to see some repetition among those things, those then are likely to be keywords. So then you could work those in there. Now, let's say, for instance, you have when your resume passes the system, it goes into the inbox usually of a human being. And that human being, it's usually those keywords are highlighted for them. So their first glance is really just going to be looking at those highlighted words. Ooh, customer service, customer retention, conflict resolution, bilingual customer service. Now, notice I said customer service twice. You can boost your score with the ATS by using the keywords more than once, but I want you to consider that when the human being sees it, if you've repeated it too many times, it's going to be overkill and it's going to annoy them. So don't put customer service 10 times in your resume. That's going to be overkill. I would usually say with the keywords, I would not use them more than about 5 times throughout your resume. That can boost your score using it more than once. But then when the human being sees it, it's not overkill. All right. So those are some things to keep in mind with regards to your resume and tailoring and toning down. Now, as I mentioned, there are 2 other sessions for this webinar series. So on the next session, we're going to cover how to write accomplishment statements. That's critical task number 2. We're going to talk about how to write accomplishment statements. We're going to talk about what to do if you have gaps in your work history. And we're going to talk about what to do if you are recently transitioning from the military into the civilian workforce, or if you have already made that transition. That's part 2. And in part 3, we're going to talk about which formats you can use. And there are formats that work better for certain circumstances. We're going to talk about some formatting things, and you might be thinking, how is that different? It'll make sense. And we're also going to talk about cover letters. So I hope you join me for these other 2 sessions, and thank you for watching today. Have a great rest of your day.